church family, it's Pastor Dan here. Welcome to our devotional channel here at Rockhampton Baptist. Now we're continuing to look at Hebrews, and we're now in chapter 13. And 13 is titled in my Bible, Concluding Exhortations. Now you find this in a lot of letters in the New Testament. This kind of, they write what they want for the church and for God's people in the letter, and then at the end they kind of conclude it. But it's very interesting, some of the things that they put in these concluding remarks. This is kind of a letter, but it's also that sermon as well that we've been talking about. And so it's kind of a concluding letter / kind of sermon. So it's an interesting section, and he covers so many different things. So if you thought we were almost at the end of Hebrews, we'll probably slow down a little bit so that we can actually capture a lot of the things that the author puts in this passage. And so today we're going to look at from verses 1 to 3. It says, "Keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by so doing some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. Continue to remember those in prison as if you were together with them in prison, and those who are mistreated, as if you yourselves were suffering." And so, very important, one of the things here is love. It's one of the things that even in the book of Colossians it talks about how love binds all things together. That idea of love, of God's unconditional love. And that's what the author reminds them here in these concluding. Keep on loving one another. So he knows the people, he knows that they are loving one another. But in the face of potential suffering that a few chapters ago was talking about, in the face of whatever comes their way, of just the normal ins and outs of life, he wants to encourage them to keep on loving one another. That kind of binds all these things together, this idea of love. And it's loving one another as brothers and sisters. So as the church, we are a family. We're not just a group of people that have the same interests. We're not simply a group of people that just are like each other, but we are to love one another as brothers and sisters. There's a real commonality. There's a kind of something that binds us more than just Jesus. It's a real family of God. And that's what the author is encouraging them here, is that as family, you are to love one another. That's an unconditional love that you put together to do that. And also he encourages them not to forget hospitality. There's this idea that you've shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. And Jesus brings up and picks up on this idea of showing hospitality to people, helping and caring for people as if you are caring for Jesus himself. And it's this same idea, is that you don't know who you're caring for. This idea of angels amongst the world and actually being able to care for it is an interesting sort of concept. And that should be our motivation there, is to love and to care for people, showing hospitality, because they may be, it may be Jesus. Is it actually Jesus? No. Jesus isn't actually there, but love it as if it is Jesus, and that's the focus of our hospitality. And then also he talks about this idea of remembering those in prison. And so it's quite likely that in this group of people and this group of followers that are first hearing this sermon or this letter, that they know Christians who are being persecuted in prison, that they're aware of those who are actually in prison, not for something that they've done wrong, but for simply knowing and loving Jesus and declaring his gospel message. And so he's encouraging them to not forget those people as well, those who are being suffered and those who are suffering and being mistreated in that prison setting. And so as he starts these concluding exhortations, you see three different things: the idea of keep loving one another as brothers and sisters, to show hospitality, to keep on showing hospitality to everyone that you meet, and this idea of not forgetting, but remembering those who are suffering, or especially those in prison. So let me pray as you remember these things, These things we experience, that the hearers there were experiencing these things. And for us, these things are evident as well. We're also called to keep on loving one another. We're also called to keep on showing hospitality to one another. And to remember not specifically those who are mistreated in prison, but those who are mistreated in this world, for their faith in Jesus. And so I'm going to pray as I leave you with those thoughts. Lord, we thank you. We thank you for all that you've guided us through. Lord, we thank you that as we get near the end of this book of Hebrews, Lord, that you remind us of some of these important things that we're meant to hold fast and to keep on doing. So Lord, today we ask that you would help us to keep on loving one another. Lord, to help us to show hospitality to one another. And Lord, help us not to forget those who are being mistreated. Lord, those in our community, our church community, that are being mistreated based on their faith in you. And Lord, those amongst the world who are being mistreated because of their faith. Lord, help us not to forget that is happening in this world. Amen. Keep on looking for opportunities to love others and bless others. As you read this word, allow it to sink deep into your thoughts and into your minds this week. As we go through these concluding exhortations, may they encourage you to continue to do these very things that were instructed to the hearers at the time.